In any environment that is broadly similar to the Earth, water, energy, carbon, life will start there as well. So that the story of life could be unfolding in many different locations, independently each time. And as each story of life is written, it'll be a little different than the others.
We think of our own world as being the perfect planet for life. But is it?
The blue moon would in many ways be more habitable, particularly for forests, than the Earth.
Carbon dioxide levels 30 times higher than on Earth will fuel rampant plant growth. The combination of a dense atmosphere and high levels of the greenhouse gas CO2 will act like a blanket, keeping the moon very warm.
You might expect a planet like the blue moon to have smaller temperature contrasts between the equator and the pole.
There will be no polar ice caps, and vegetation will carpet its entire landmass.
On the blue moon we have plants and we also have forests, and amongst the most astonishing are the pagoda trees. Now these are immense, absolutely gigantic.
They're more than a kilometer high. That's 8 times the height of the tallest trees on Earth. The ceiling of this world is a sea of sky ponds. Each tree has modified its leaves to collect rainwater. And the whole forest is interconnected like one vast superorganism.
So here are forests which are alien indeed.
The trees on Earth could never grow so large.
And the reason for this is effectively that inside the plant there is a set of tubes. It's a sort of conduction system which is responsible for taking the water from the roots up into the sky. And effectively what we see is there's a limit to the size, the height of the column of the water. Now on Blue Moon it's rather different.
The pagodas don't need to draw water up from the ground. They collect it in their sky ponds, and then gravity does the rest. But the weight of the water in the sky ponds could make the tree collapse. The scientists have overcome this by imagining the forest as interconnected. It will give the pagodas enormous strength and stability.
In principle, trees and a forest based on this design could get higher and higher and higher. What could that height be? It could be 500 or even 1,000 meters. It could be easily 10 times higher than trees on Earth.
All life on the Blue Moon revolves around this vast cathedral of pagoda trees. Their sky ponds are a haven for many other aliens. Strange creatures hover above them. Giant kites. They use their tentacles like fishing lines to catch helibugs living in the ponds. The Blue Moon's dense atmosphere is perfect for supporting large creatures. But how is it possible for the kite to hang motionless in the air?
On the Blue Moon, we get more support by pushing on this heavy air than we would by pushing on the lighter air that we've got here on Earth. So this kite, which might need quite a strong wind to get it airborne on Earth, will be taken up into the air by considerably weaker wind on the Blue Moon.
Biomechanists predict a creature with this design could grow up to 5 meters across and still stay airborne.
It's relying on moving wind and an aerofoil effect to keep itself up in the air. So this is going to look in cross-section just like an aeroplane wing. And when there's enough wind around, air passes over top and bottom, creating a pressure difference which lifts the body up, but it's kept in place by a tether, very much like a kite string. And then behind it we have these tentacles that dangle into the water, just like a jellyfish tentacle, waiting to grab any larvae that it hits.
The kite's fishing grounds are vast. Beneath the pagoda's dense canopy, light from the twin suns rapidly dims. More than a kilometer below is a strange world. No natural light reaches here. In these abyssal depths, life depends on food falling down from above. Glowing scavengers hover in the air. Higher up in the twisted tangle of the canopy is another unique world. It's the lair of the death traps. The great halls of the forest are draped with their lethal tentacles. You never escape the embrace of the death trap. The stalker faces a slow death, dissolving in a bath of acid. But the need to provide for the colony drives the surviving scouts on. It won't be long before one of these gentle giants is singled out and the fury of the stalker army is unleashed. The Blue Moon is a land of turmoil and change.
Forest fires on the Earth can be deadly. On the Blue Moon, they can be far more ferocious. They can sweep through huge areas, fanned by winds, fueled by the oxygen.
The destruction is massive, but the breaks left in the canopy will bring opportunity to others. A new alien is coming to life. The balloon plants. Blue Moon's dense atmosphere will enable plants to float in the sky. The field of balloons gently sway in the breeze, anchored to the canopy with long tethers. The biomechanists have calculated plants like this could grow to the size of a small hot air balloon. It's an extraordinary vision of what alien vegetation could be like.
If you want to float in an atmosphere, you need a lighter-than-air gas. And the best gas on demand, simply by splitting water molecules, is hydrogen. At first sight, hydrogen might seem to be a very strange gas to use. No. On Earth, in fact, a number of organisms produce hydrogen. You might think, well, that's very alien, nothing like that. Well, no, not really. If we go back to our own Earth, let's remind ourselves about the kelp forests. Because here we see these great strands of seaweed in a thick water, but supporting themselves with bladders full of gas. Is that so very different from the balloon plants of Blue Moon? I don't think so. Both are equally alien.
When conditions are right, the balloons can rise high above the pagodas. It's a simple way to compete for light on a planet where plant life is rampant and space is at a premium.
The balloon plants are opportunistic. What they do is when part of the underlying forest has been removed by a fire, for example, they very rapidly colonize it. They release parts of the plant which drift away.
Here, these giant balloons will join clouds of tiny plants that spend their lives drifting in the sky, the algae.
So high up in the atmosphere, there'll be innumerable tiny algae. It's really like the plankton of the Earth's ocean. And this, I think, will give an almost greenish haze to many parts of the sky as these things drift around in colossal numbers. So this atmosphere, in a sense, is an enormous larder. It's full of food. And if there's food floating around, especially in the form of algae, then it would be natural to imagine that there will be animals grazing that resource.
The floating plants concentrate in vast green clouds, and the sky whales scoop them up in colossal mouthfuls. The blue moon will take about 10 Earth days to orbit around its parent planet. There will be 5 days of light and 5 days of darkness. The temperature difference creates intense thermals which the sky whales ride with ease.
To be an effective filter feeder, you need to be quite large, because every time you open your mouth to start filtering, there's a huge drag. So what I see the sky whales doing is spiraling up these thermals and then come down with a large mass behind them because they're big, opening up their mouths and ramming a lot of aeroplankton through. If you're small, you do that, stop and fall out of the sky.
Feeding well below the main pod, one sky whale has dropped in altitude. It's the moment the scouts have been waiting for. The lone sky whale continues to graze. It's in mortal danger. The scouts stealthily gain height. They must get above the whale. Gathering speed, they pass low over the whale. And in one swift flyby, it's sprayed with a powerful scent. The whale is marked like a beacon. The stalker army will now be able to find the whale wherever it goes. Panic spreads through the whale pod. The marked whale's only chance is to climb as high as it can on the thermals and try to escape gliding downwind. The scouts now race back to the colony to summon the workers.
The idea that a trail of chemicals, pheromones, could be used by the stalkers on the blue moon may seem rather unlikely. Wouldn't the scent be dispersed in the atmosphere? Well, no, I don't think so, because in point of fact, remember, this atmosphere is much denser. Pheromones can be detected at tiny concentrations. It's an economic, cheap way of leaving the trail behind, the trail which takes the workers to their prey.
The scouts' return sends a wave of excitement through the colony. The sky whale will be lucky to survive.
One of the arguments about looking for extraterrestrial life is, will it also be intelligent? And many people feel no, intelligence is an evolutionary fluke. But everything else we know about evolution is, not only does it find similar solutions, but it finds them again and again and again.
Blue moon stalkers are highly organized, a terrifying adversary. Like the social insect, theirs is a shared intelligence, very different to our own.
Each worker has a small brain, and they don't solve the problem by stepping back from it and thinking about it. They actually solve the problem by having lots of individuals exploring for answers. Life on other planets might have evolved entirely down that route, and that could be the dominant form of life, and in a sense suppress the evolution of more individualistic forms of intelligence.
An alien army is unleashed. Hundreds of workers home in on the scent trail left by the scouts. They move as one, a formidable swarm. Speed is critical. They know the marked whale will be trying to gain height. The panicking whale is still dangerously low. The scent trail is getting stronger and stronger. Its desperate battle to escape has failed. The attack is savage. The workers tear into its fragile honeycombed wings, puncturing its buoyancy cells. Cries fill the air. Slowly, the giant begins to drop from the skies. The stalkers follow and wait. The defenseless whale is slowly ripped to pieces. Then its flesh is carried back to the roost to feed a new generation of hungry stalkers. The giant's struggles become weaker and weaker. It's all part of the great cycle of life in the Blue Moon's pagoda forest. The stalker colony is a formidable force. Everything they do is governed by their collective intelligence. But how far might this intelligence evolve? Could they one day match or even exceed our own on Earth?
It's really tempting to think whether this might go further. After all, they're active hunters, they're communicating, they're working effectively in packs. Is it possible to imagine that one day they would go so far as to develop a technology to hunt those sky whales? I don't see why not.
One of the intriguing things, I think, that might be in the future of the stalker is that they might end up farming the whales rather than just crudely predating them. And in fact, you could imagine them dominating the entire surface of the planet and the surface of its atmosphere in this way.
Lightning ignites the forest. atmosphere is immense, consuming everything in its path. The balloon plants filled with hydrogen explode like bombs, casting their seeds over the surface of the planet. And from this destruction, new life will emerge. Life will continue to evolve on the Blue Moon as it has done for millions of years.
I think that one day we may indeed find something rather like the Blue Moon. I think this is no longer the stuff of science fiction. I hope that I'm around when something like this is discovered.
When the new telescopes are launched over the next 10 years, they will be pointing towards twin stars, searching for worlds like the Blue Moon. The landmark research done by the scientists here will help govern where we look for extraterrestrial life.
Will we find planets like Blue Moon orbiting other stars, orbiting giant planets around other stars? The answer is almost certainly yes. There are so many stars with so many potential planets that we have to imagine there must be planets like these there. It's just a question of discovering them that far away.
Life on many worlds may not progress beyond simple bacteria. Others could evolve complex life. And some could evolve intelligence beyond our wildest expectations.
Intelligence will almost certainly lead, on many planets, to a species which will want to visit the stars. And if indeed we do contact extraterrestrial life, our whole world picture will change forever.
It could happen in our lifetime,